And the family asked me to say a few words about Wanda for them. And the alleged reason is that I'm an outsider who married into the Rios, Ruskjer, Martin clan, and that I would provide some unique perspectives on Wanda and the family. And, but I think I know the real reason. If you know the Rioses, they can be irritatingly private. They don't talk a lot. Have you ever played the game 20 Questions? I do that a lot with Sina, to pull things out of this Rios clan, information that I freely, give out, and who Wanda would freely give out. And so that's another reason. Wanda and I were on the same wavelength. And maybe some of the information in your Sabbath school class came from me because we talked about things. And so I jotted down quite a few things. I would squeeze things in when I would remember. And so I don't want to make it too long, but time is not of the essence here. There's no mother-in-law jokes here. I treasured her as I treasured my own mother. And, bottom line, this is an honor for me. But it's a humbling experience, because how do you represent the family, 86 years of life, adequately? How do you make it special? And for Wanda's sake, it's celebration. It's not a wake. She wouldn't want that. She'd be laughing. She'd be carrying on, just like the family has done for years on Sabbath afternoon. When I joined the family way back in '68, we would have great times joking around and talking on Sabbath afternoon. And so you all are going to be part of that again. It's Sabbath afternoon. And hopefully we can have the memories, yes, but have a little fun here as well, thinking that, Wanda would be sitting right here, and you know how Wanda laughed. And so that's the game plan, though, that I decided on to try to make this a special plan, special event, is that I'm a pretty good facilitator. At work, I'm project manager in engineering, and I can facilitate the electrical engineers and the mechanical engineers and civil and structural and get things going. And like you in Sabbath school class, I like doing that as well. Facilitate. I don't teach. I facilitate. And so there are times when you get this synergy in the group, where 1 + 1 is greater than 2. And things it's a high Sabbath when you're in a Sabbath school class, or when you come up with some really neat ideas for some project that you're working on. And what I've decided to do is talk about 3 aspects of Wanda's life and hope to pull, and as you noticed, none of this bunch over here came up, hope to pull maybe some heartstring to pull them up and say something about Wanda. No pressure. I'm not going to say it again. It's going to be your conscience, because, and let me think like an engineer again. She died Tuesday, but as per Seventh-day Adventist doctrine, I think we all believe that the next instant, in her mind, she was on her way to heaven. And so, bottom line, we're still here, but in her mind, she's there. And which means that right now, in her mind, She wants the replay of this thing. She wants to hear what all of you said about her, because I know Wanda. She said, what did you say? What's going on? And probably laugh at a few things too. So I'm going to talk about 3 different aspects, a few illustrations from my perspective, like they asked, and hoping to pull something out. And I don't care about the time it takes. But no, it'll be brief. And again, it's like a home reunion. The first aspect is the fun-loving, free-spirited Wanda. And as you know, her early life in Peru, she would talk about shooting the rapids and playing with the natives and having monkeys and having birds and that outdoorsy life. And that just permeated the rest of her life. That set the tone for her, what I call the abundant life that she lived. And we were all part of it. You were part of it. You know what that abundant life was all about. And the closest thing I can think of to connect, remember The Sound of Music? And when the nuns were singing that song about Maria, the Liberty Gibbet, the Will-o'-the-Wisp, the clown, well, there's Wanda. I get this impression of Wanda. And the wild part, squeaky. We're remembering when we were in Wisconsin, and that's where I met the family, met my wife there, and she worked at what they call Central Colony, and they did research. I don't exactly know what kind of research, but they had monkeys. And okay, here's Wanda. There's monkeys around. This is South America again. And for some reason, she was able to get a squirrel monkey and brought it home as a pet. And there was Squeaky. And you talk about some fun Sabbath afternoons, you talk about a barrel of monkeys, just one can give you a lot of fun. And Rick and Jens would tease that monkey, but Wanda, loved it. She would have it, play with it, it would land on her, she'd kiss it, the whole business. And here again, this is, this free-spirited, fun-loving Wanda. And of course, her contagious laughter. We talked about this the other day, where she would think of some story in South America many times, and she would start to talk about it, and then she'd start to laugh. And then she'd laugh harder. And then she'd try to explain, what's happening next. And she would get a few more lines out, and she would start laughing again. And we would all kind of sit back there, smiling, waiting for the punchline. And it finally came when she was almost rolling on the floor. This is the happy-go-lucky Wanda that I remember. And then I'm sure, as the kids remember, the embarrassing Wanda. She would have so much fun at functions, church functions. She's got these private kids, but she's this sanguine, outgoing person. It's just the, the strangest thing. Talk about party. Yeah, she's going to go to a party. She's going to have fun at the party, no matter what. No matter what her kids say. And they could be totally embarrassed, and she's having the time of her life. Sledding in Wisconsin. There was some story about sledding that hopefully somebody could fill me in on. And also some church function where a construction guy gave rides in his backhoe. And so, of course, Wanda's right there, getting a ride in a backhoe, in the bucket, up and down, and things like that. And bottom line, she had a unique ability to laugh at herself. Some of the things that I would just be really mad at. And here, same thing would happen to her, and she's laughing at it. And the hammock story, where she's babysitting Jence's 3 girls, and she's in a hammock. And of course, Wanda's pretty rough, you know, she was, and she must have been swinging too hard or whatever. And the thing collapsed, fell on the ground. And the kids are just crying away. And she is just laughing away. And the more she laughed, the more they cried. So it just illustrates this mindset that she had, this unique personality, this fun-loving, carefree, free-spirited person that she was. So before I leave number 1, does anybody want to say anything about Wanda and her free spirit? Good luck. Because I know they love her to death. Oh, another Eastern European who married into a Hispanic family. This is Hampton Pasalski.
I stay right here, Jim. There's a lot of stories. Wanda was with us for about 1996 to 2003. She was with us in Hendersonville for about 4, almost 5 years, and we went to Colorado. And she used to do some stuff. It's just, we'd all laugh. We go over on Saturday afternoons. And my daughter, who's peeking around the corner up there, started swimming. And we had a pool that was 42 feet long. And my mother-in-law at that time was about 58, something like that, 57. And she was going to help Elizabeth learn how to swim. So Elizabeth said, "You can swim, Grandma?" So she jumped in the water, under the water, swam to the other side underwater, back to the deep, to the shallow, 3 different times in one breath. And then she taught Elizabeth how to paddle a canoe. But there were some things that were really funny. One time we were doing one of the concerts with the children. We were up at Highland. And we had not eaten, and Carla said, "Well, we can just eat when we get back." So we were up there, and of course, I might not look like it, but I don't miss many meals. So when I got there, I was really hungry, and right after the thing, I saw Wanda. She had this sack. Well, I knew she always took care of us. She always had some food or something set aside. And I was sitting, my wife's laughing now. I was so excited. I went over there, and I said, "Wanda, what you got? What are you talking about?" I said, "Some banana bread or something?" She took off a pair of shoes she had changed into. And I said, "Come on, that can't be." But when we traveled was the most fascinating, as everybody knows in my family. Just when I traveled back last weekend with my daughter, she said, "Dad, are you sleeping?" I said, "No, I'm just dreaming. When I sleep, I go off the road." Well, Wanda used to watch me in the mirror as we traveled. And said, "Hampton, wake up." And I said, "I'm awake. You are not. Wake up." Finally, I just took the mirror and turned it up. She would never go to sleep with me driving. But as Jim says, it was constant things she would bring up, and she would laugh and make us all laugh over and over and over. Those are the good times. I mean, my daughter got married in December 22nd last year, and she said, "I'm going to be there." I told Carl, I said, "I think it's too much for your mom." "No, she's coming." And she did. And that's from UTC campus. And Elizabeth was so happy to see her. But even then, she was still joking. Took a little bit more time to get around, but she was fun-loving. I came into this family about 10 years later when I married Carla. So I didn't get these stories. Some of them I'm hearing now, but thanks for giving me that time, Jim. Yeah.
Second aspect of Wanda, the abundant life, love relationships, Wanda. And as mentioned before, it all started in 1949 when Carlos and Wanda were married. And as mentioned before, coming to the United States in 1952, 6 with Julius and Gus, Sina and Jens. And stop and think about that. These, relatively newly married couple with two young kids accepting and Carlos was, I guess, the big shot down in Peru. To give that up, there's this love relationship between the two. Stop and think about that. To give that up. And Wanda wanted the advantages in America for the kids, and to say yes, and then to say yes to a 16-year-old and a 10-year-old, as well as a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, blended family, an immediate blended family. There's something special there as well. And so when they did settle ultimately in Wisconsin, what I remember, the stories about birthday parties. The birthday parties that all the kids wanted to go over to the Rios house because Wanda was special with these games. And she would, I don't even know the name of the games, but See the Stars, where they pour water down a sleeve or something like that. This is Wanda's style. This is slapstick stuff that she really enjoyed. And where you're on some board of some kind and it feels like you're going up, and because you're blindfolded, and then they tell you to jump, and nobody wants to jump, but you're only like 6 inches off the floor. And she would just laugh at that stuff. It was really fun. Her house was always open to the teenage kids. When the kids got older, her house was always open for the teenagers to come and hang out. And her house was always open for me, too, when I got to meet Sina and Madison. And every Saturday and every Sunday, and Carla reminded me of this on Sunday, if you go back in time, 1968, when we got together, Green Bay Packers were, three-peat champions. The Packers were, Lombardi, and we're in Wisconsin, and wow, everything is cool. And she would make pizza every Sunday, and I would be there to watch the game, and she hated football, but she loved watching us go nuts. And so she had a wonderful time there, too. The Siskin episode. When they went to Tennessee, she worked at the Siskin Foundation, and that is a place where the steel manufacturing company had a foundation for taking care of physically and mentally retarded children, infants. And, this is right up her alley. This is that help, this love, this patience, this laughing at anything and everything. No job was too messy for her. Just roll up the sleeves, get in there, and take care of whatever needed to be taken care of. And, it just illustrated that character again, that abundant life, love relationship. And then the grandkids. We were fortunate. We were in Tennessee at that time when our kids were small. And then there's Grandma doting over her grandkids and babysitting at the right time. And when we would take trips, vacations and whatnot, we'd take Wanda along, go to the beach or whatever, to Myrtle Beach, other places. And all the things that she had done at her job, and these songs, and teaching kids to, just kind of sit up, or to eat, or enjoy music, listen to music. She would be singing these songs, and the kids would be loving it. And she never ran out of any, different song, and always would do the special requests from the kids. Grandma, do that one again, and all of that. And of course, her trips to Wisconsin, because the families were, a lot of the family was in Wisconsin, and there's 4 individuals right now that came down from Wisconsin because she would do the same thing up there. She would, have this love relationship with all her kids. And glad they came. It's a special time to honor their grandmother. And so, does anybody, I will ask, does anybody have any experiences of Wanda's heart, not the bad heart, the good heart that she had? Before Hampton comes up, while going through Wanda's things, we found some stuff, and I was going through it, and it really does, when you look at it from an insightful perspective here, it really says what everybody feels and everybody knows. And let's see, well, we'll start with the oldest. The prophetic wise one. Class of 98. Grandma, you are the best. You are the best grandma anybody could ask for. When you're not around, I'll always be remembering you in my heart. I love you lots. Sheena. Okay, and I think this is the sensitive, sentimental, loving granddaughter, class of 99. Dear Grandma, thanks for always taking care of me and always being there to talk to. I love you so much. Sabrina. This is all from Orlando Junior Academy. Oh, these little plaques. Great idea. Okay, class of 2001. And this is from the, how should I say, the pretty butterfly who had a little struggle getting out of the cocoon. Grandma, thanks for always letting me come over to your house every summer and eat all your food. Thanks for always loving me no matter what I do. And thanks for always making me laugh. I love you. Shannon. That kind of says it all. Any volunteers before I go to number 3? It's a tough bunch. Okay, the third aspect, the spiritual Wanda. The most important aspect of all to Wanda, because every card, and now you have to figure this out and look at the volume. We figured up 28 grandchildren, 32 great-grandchildren, 4 great-great-grandchildren. And then you've got birthdays, you've got anniversaries, you've got holidays, and you've got, from Polly, friends. And she would send cards. And how many received, at least a show of hands for this, how many have received a card from Wanda? All right, okay. The entire family. And it was always accompanied by some little spiritual Bible verse or some little note of God in there. And because the constant concern for her family was to see them all in heaven. And in fact, just 1 week ago, as we're speaking, when she was in the hospital, and she was talking about, I want to go to sleep. I want to see my family in heaven. I want to go to sleep. I want to see my family in heaven. You know, you can just take from that her parents and the family she had, her own family, extended family, you know, church family. That was her goal. And she was concerned. She was very concerned about that. And she had one regret that made her be concerned a little bit more too, was that it wasn't until, you know, later, after she had raised her family, that she really understood what salvation by grace through faith really meant. She felt a little bit sorrowful for perhaps being a little bit legalistic, or maybe a lot legalistic, raising the kids. And so obviously, in her way, she would try her best to counter that and bring in, as was said before, the love of Christ in everything. And, you know, it's not what you do, it's who you know, and things like that. And the pastor asked us when we were planning this out, you know, did Wanda have a favorite text of any kind? And, you know, it's like, I think she underlined most of the Bible, and we couldn't really say. But since we were on the same wavelength, and spiritually we were on the same wavelength, I kind of figured what it might be. And so sure enough, I grabbed one of her Bibles. She had many in the cabinet, bookcase. And I went to 1 John 5. And sure enough, it's underlined in red. 1 John 5, 11 through 13. And this is the testimony that God gave us eternal life, and this life is in his Son. He who has the Son has life. He who has not the Son of God has not life. I write this to you who believe in the name of the Son of God, that you may know that you have eternal life. And Wanda knew she had eternal life, and it was her job to tell everybody else that they can have eternal life too, just by having the Son. Okay, now what does that mean? What does it mean to have the Son? Well, we've talked about it throughout this whole eulogy and just our conversation here now. It's knowing that Jesus was real, knowing that John had been with Jesus. He knew the power of Jesus, but he also understood his mission. John got it, and he had to tell the entire world. Well, how was he going to do that back in those days? He wrote it down. If they had punctuation, he probably would have put a lot of exclamation points after, you know you have eternal life by knowing Jesus. And knowing Jesus is just finding out about him, you know, reading about his life, patterning your life after him, and it's that easy. And that's what she was trying to get across. And she was a perfect example of that. But do these words hold up when life happens, when tragedy and disasters hit? Will this head knowledge actually translate into a love relationship that'll last for eternity? It's the time when people ask, where is God? 9/11, tornadoes, earthquakes, tidal waves, where some people die, some people live.